Good day everyone and welcome to Slosh Mining. Hope everyone is doing well and staying safe. In our previous video, we built this mining server with the motherboard, CPU memory, power supply, and the mining frame from hashrate.co.za. I've added the risers for the new graphics cards that we received in our last video. The RTX 3060 12GB graphics cards. And we would like to see what the hash rate's power consumption, ROI, and profitability is. We will be running HIVEOS. As you can see, we've got the flash drive installed. I've already installed HIVEOS on the flash drive. All we need to do is now plug in our graphics cards and away we go. These are the graphics cards that we unboxed in our last video. We've got one EVGA RTX 3060 12GB graphics card. And then we've got three pallet RTX 3060 12GB cards. Let's get these cards plugged in and see what they hash at. Let's make sure this plastic is off of each card before we plug it in. That is quite satisfying. First graphics card. Plugged in. Second graphics card plugged in. And lastly, the EVGA RTX 3060. So what we require is 4 PCIe power connectors for the graphics cards. And then I've got 2 risers that are Molex connectors and 2 risers that are PCIe connectors. We are using one cable that's split into 2 8-pin connectors to power both graphics cards. That's the one cable on our power supply. This cable will be plugged into these 2 graphics cards, and then we've got another cable plugged into our risers. So let's get this plugged in quickly. So we're going to power on our server and see what we get on our display. Definitely have power on our cards. I'm hoping these cables should have enough power. I don't think we're going to run it more than 150 per card. Let's just see how far it gets and if it picks up our graphics cards. Definitely getting some activity on our flash drive. And there we go, we can see the 4 graphics cards. Let's go into HIVEOS to set up the cards, see what the hash rates are on stock and overclocked. Be right back. Now that we're in HIVEOS, we can see that all 3 graphics cards have Samsung memory, which should overclock really well. So the palette and the EVGA has Samsung memory. The GPU 0, we can see that that one is the EVGA. Let's create a flight sheet for this rig and see what it hashes at stock settings. So we're going to go to flight sheet. We're going to create a new flight sheet. And what we will be mining is Ethereum. We'll select our wallet. We'll select the pool, and at the moment all my other servers are mining on Ethermine. So let's select Ethermine. And then for the miner, I find that Gminer is actually quite stable with LHR cards. So I'm going to select Gminer. Let's create a flight sheet. We can call this RTX 3060 ETH mining. and create the flight sheet. Let's go back to flight sheets. Select the RTX 3060 ETH mining. And let's go to the moon. See, I actually need to update to the latest version on the flash drive, HIVEOS. Let's go to Shell in a Box. See if we pick up all 4 cards. Yep, we can see all 4 cards. Let's go to Miner. I probably just needed a restart. And these are at stock settings. No overclocks on the memory, no undervolting. And we're getting 23 megahash per second, and they're mining at about, let's say, 98 to about 106 watts. And then the lock detected. Okay, so these cards will probably unlock. Let's give it a second, see what they settle at on stock settings. And just remember, I am using Gminer as the mining software, not TRX. Let's see what we can do with these RTX 3060 12 gig cards. Going to give it about 15 minutes to just run through and see what we settle on. Okay, server's been running for almost 18 minutes. Our hash rates that we're getting is 115 megahash per second at 555 watts, and our efficiency is at 208. And the card started out with 73% of its power and has dropped down to about 70.5 for the first 3, and that is including the EVGA, which is the first card. The last card sitting at 71.5% of its power, or hash rate. No overclock and undervolt on these cards. So ranging from between 27 megahash per second to 29, almost 30 megahash per second. Power consumption is from about 128 watts to about 142 watts. The EVGA seems to be the lowest on its power. Okay. So what we're going to do now is let's test T-Rex, seeing that it can run at 74%, and see what hash rates and compare it to Gminer. And we're still going to test it at stock settings. So let's go to our flight sheet, and let's change the miner. So let's select T-Rex miner. And this is a new option in HIVEOS I see with T-Rex miner. You can actually select your second coin. So select your wallet address, select your pool, and you can actually set the intensity on the second algorithm, the percentage of load of second algorithm from 10 to 95. Leave it blank for auto tune, but we're not going to do that. We're going to leave it blank just to test out Ethereum on these cards. So let's select Ethermine, and we're going to be using T-Rex. Is there anything else we need to set? You can actually set it here as well. So let's not fiddle around with that. We're going to leave just the one. I'll test this out at the end after it has been overclocked and undervolted. So just testing Ethereum on Ethermine with T-Rex miner. Okay, let's go back to our overview. Let's restart the server, seeing that we changed the miner. Let's get back into shell in a box and see what our graphics cards hash at on TRX miner. Okay. Now if I look at the memory, seems like the last card is now the EVGA. Target memory is set to 31 megahash. Let's leave this for about 20 minutes as we did with Gminer and see what hash rates we actually settle on. We're at about 23.5 minutes. Should have been enough time to actually stabilize these hash rates. We're using about 72% of the hash rate of these cards, which averages out about 30 megahash per second per card. We're currently getting about 121.9 megahash per second at 578 watts and an efficiency of 211. We seem to be getting shares per minute 1.769. So we ended up on 72% LHR. Now that we've got more or less an idea of our benchmarks on stock settings, let's try 100 on the core, 2700 on the memory, fan speed up to 100, and we're going to leave the power limit and see what we can actually achieve with these settings. Let's log back into shell in a box. And we can see that the cards are already trying to unlock. So let's see what our final hash rates are in our power consumption and efficiency. And then we'll try something else that I definitely think might work. Let's run this for about 15 to 20 minutes and see what we end up on. Our server has been running for about 11 minutes. We're getting about 138 megahash per second at 600 watts and an average of 230 efficiency. The graphics cards are using quite a bit of power at these overclock and undervolt settings. 146 to over 161 watts per card, and our hash rates are between 34 and just under 36 megahash per second, which seems okay. Power is a bit high. Let's use absolute core on these graphics cards and see what happens to our power consumption. Just to make sure of our hash rate, we're getting 137 megahash and we're using about 640 watts. Just to take note of our hash rates and our power consumption, 34 on our EVGA, 34.47 at 147 watts. Then we've got about 35 megahash, 35 just under 36 megahash per second at between 148 to 173. Let's change the core to 135, and what this does is it actually uses just enough power for that specific hash rate that it's going to be getting. So we've got our memory at 2700, and that is double the amount that would actually be in Windows, which is 1350 in Windows if you had to overclock in Windows. So let's save this absolute core at 2700 on the memory. Let's restart our server using the new settings that we've just set. So let's take a look at shell in a box. Server seems very slow. Miner. we go. So we're starting at 73% LHR. With the core clock at 100, we drop down to 72% LHR. Let's see what we can do with this. So right off the bat, we're getting 25 mega hash at 60 to 64 watts, which is actually a great efficiency. Let's give this about 10 to 15 minutes to run and see what we actually end on. Once this has been completed, we can take a look and see if this card is actually worth the money we're spending for mining. And all our figures I will put in a table so that it's easy to view. Okay, we've been running our server for about 15 minutes and we getting about 33.5 mega hash per second on each card, totaling 134 mega hash per second at 369 watts. Our efficiency is at 363 average. So we've dropped our wattage or power by just under 300 watts by using an absolute core of 1350, which is not actually bad. We are getting just under 2 shares a minute, 1.87, and our LHR has stayed at 73%. It has not dropped. I'm sure we can get higher hash rates with these cards, but let's take a look at maybe TRX miner to see if we can get a better hash rate. If we look at the EVGA card and the palette, EVGA does use slightly less power, maybe 2 to 3 watts less. The efficiency is a little better, but not much. And I don't think it's actually worth the extra money for that hash rate at that efficiency. So our conclusion to this test is that buying the cheapest card actually does kind of pay off. You don't really need an expensive card. Okay, let's try TRX miner and see what hash rates we get. See if that LHR percentage drops or if it actually is the same. So let's go to our flight sheet and we're going to change the miner to TRX. Let's stick to Ethereum for now. Okay, so we've moved over to TRX. Got a little exclamation mark on our probably fourth graphics card, meaning the overclock is a bit too high. And this was fine in Gminer. Let's leave this to run for about 15 minutes and see what our hash rates are, power consumption and efficiency. Our server's been running for about just over 11 minutes and I noticed that the miner or hash rate jumps between 134 mega hash to 137 mega hash. Our hash rate is currently at 134 mega hash per second at 374 watts and our efficiency is at 360. With Gminer, our efficiency was at 362. Using the absolute core definitely benefits your power consumption. Our power consumption is at about 90 watts per card, which is actually not bad. It's probably the same power consumption as a GTX 1660 Super. We are using 74% LHR that hasn't dropped or tried to unlock, which is great. I still prefer using Gminer though. Let's take a look at the table with all the details that we've got from our test, so that the test has been a bit long, and see what is most efficient. You will also be able to see the difference of actually overclocking and undervolting, as well as using absolute core. So with all the info that we've collected from our mining rig and our benchmarks, Some basic information that you need to know. We are using 4 RTX 3060 12 gig cards. Each card is currently priced at about 12,000 Rand, which converted to USD is about $741. The algorithm that we're mining is Ethereum, Hashimedo. Electricity cost is about 18 cents per kilowatt, which is 291 in South African rands. The current Bitcoin price at the time of recording this is 48,382. Ethereum's price is at 3,861. And the USD South African Rand exchange rate is 16 Rand 19 cents. So at our stock settings, we used Gminer and TRX miner, our current hash rates for the two mining software, our power consumption, efficiency, and electricity costs for the day. We're looking at about $2.39 per day with Gminer and $2.49 per day for TRX miner. And these are at the stock settings, no overclocks and undervolts. Our profits before electricity is just over $7. And our ROI after electricity for these cards, you're looking at about 625 days and just under 600 days. But no one's going to be using these settings. No one will be using these settings, so this is just for information. If you're using an overclock of 100 on the core, 2700 on the memory, you're looking at about 137 megahash per second at 640 watts. The efficiency is at 224 kilohash per watt. You're using about 15.36 kilowatts per day. Electricity cost is about $2.76. And the profit for these four cards with these overclock settings is at $8.41 before electricity. And the ROI is 525 days after electricity. Absolute Core definitely benefits these cards. With Gminer, we were getting just over 33 megahash per second with a total hash rate of 134 megahash per second at 369 watts. Our average efficiency on the cards was at 362 kilohash per watt. The electricity used for the day is at 8.85 kilowatts. And with TRX miner, we were looking at 8.97 watts because it did use about 5 watts more per hour. Profits before electricity, you're looking at $8.23 or 133 Rand. And your ROI is about 447 days, which is really bad. To really compare this card, you're probably looking at a GTX 1660 Super 6 gig card that would be mining at about 31, 32 megahash per second at about 80 to 90 watts. And your ROI would definitely be a lot less. This card should shine when dual mining maybe Ethereum and Ravencoin, mining two different algorithms. With the 6 gig cards, you can only mine one algorithm. That will be in my next video, dual mining on the RTX 3060 12 gig. Hope you found this video informative and insightful. Let me know what you think of these cards and if you have them running in your mining rig. Do you perhaps get better hash rates, lower power consumption, and what your overclocks and undervolts are? Please drop a comment down below. Hope you found this video informative and insightful. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay up to date with upcoming videos. Thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video. Ciao for now.